And we are now broadcasting.
Okay.
And we are about to go live on Facebook.
We are. Can you see people there?
I see. Yeah,
I see.
I see. We the People of Detroit is here. Yeah.
Okay, she needs to be in as a panelist.
Yeah, she does need to be in as a panelist.
Okay, I'll do
And
that.
Maritza needs to be in as a panelist also, but I don't see her here.
I'm going to add people as panelists
But
as
she's
they
here.
come in, but I have all their
Okay.
names. I'm just doing
Okay.
Facebook right now.
All right.
Can people hear us, Camille?
So can
Yes.
you raise your hand if you can hear us? Does everybody know how to raise hands?
They raised their hand. One person raised their hand.
Yeah, people's hands are raised.
Okay, so they can hear us.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
So we'll be starting shortly. We're just getting our panelists in the line so we can have them ready to speak when it's their turn. So we're starting soon. You're in the right place.
Thank you for joining us as recording. This podcast is currently recording. And so remember that anything you say is going to be on a record, and we're going to be broadcasting it to the entire community. Those who could not join us today, we're going to be posting the video on all of our socials.
Okay, it says now we're live on Facebook.
Okay.
You are welcome, Alex.
So let me know when, I guess we'll decide when we're going to begin.
I don't see We the People in yet as a panelist.
I see them. Oh, you're saying as a panelist. I think Camille said she was going to add them as panelists after as they are. Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah.
There she is.
Oh, here we are. We're all in.
All right.
Okay.
So Donna, you can start when you are ready.
All right. So it's kind of odd to present like this because I can't see anybody, but I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening to talk about an important issue that all of us are experiencing, and that is COVID-19. We want to be a resource to share not only some of the resources that are available, but to also counteract some of the myths, answer some of the questions, and make sure people understand exactly what a virus is, how a virus operates, and what we can expect in terms of medical care. So we have a couple of really special guests who have joined us. Dr. McIntyre, Maritza McIntyre, is joining us from Durham, North Carolina. Dr. McIntyre has been a virologist, I believe, for 20 years, and virology is the study of viruses. And in that position, in that capacity, she has both studied viruses, but also studied and created gene therapies using viruses to help correct diseases. She's worked for the FDA and helped approve medications. And so she brings with her a lot of experience that we are going to use. Camille, can you advance the slide, please? All right. Well, there you have it. I tried to summarize all of this, but Maritza is the Chief Development Officer at, go back one, at Stripe Bio, and a leading developer of novel adeno-associated viral-based gene therapies. She oversees translational development of their research stage gene therapy programs. And again, she is a virologist with over 20 years of experience in the development, evaluation, and regulation of gene therapy, biological, and small molecule products. And she's got, she holds a PhD in virology from the University of Psychology and a Bachelor in Science from none other than our own Wayne State University. Maritza is from Detroit and is our hometown girl, and she's also my cousin, and I'm really excited to welcome her to this webinar. So with that, I want to invite Maritza to begin sharing some of the information that I just outlined.
Oops. I still have that background from our chat yesterday.
Okay.
Maybe I should turn that off. It's kind of distracting.
Okay. There you are.
There. Okay. Hi, Donna. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So Donna asked me to join in on this forum tonight to just cover some of the biology of viruses and answer, and go over some of the issues in terms of how best to protect yourself. And also I can speak a little bit to some of the, not really exactly how these drugs work, but in general, what the process is for testing and improving therapies for drugs. So to start with, a virus is the simplest type of microbe that there exists in nature. So it is smaller and simpler than bacteria like E. coli that can give you food poisoning, or strep that can give you strep throat. And those are even smaller than the types of parasites that, for example, cause malaria. So what does that mean? That means that a virus is generally simply some genetic material, meaning that that's the DNA or RNA that encodes the instructions for that virus to make the proteins that it needs to replicate itself. And those are encased in a shell. And so that shell, again, there's genes that are carried on the virus's genetic material that are coded for to make that coat. Depending on how complex a virus is, it may have code for proteins that will, once it gets into the cell, will prevent your body's immune system from immediately reacting to it. And that is the case with the coronavirus. But other than that, a virus is going to actually use the machinery in your cells to make new copies of itself. And so that actually is how there's more made. So the virus gets into your cell, and then it starts to hijack the machinery within your cells to make new copies of itself, those get released out of that cell, and then they can infect more cells in your body and make more copies. And eventually then, when they're circulating around in your bloodstream, or if they are copying themselves, for example, in your lungs or your respiratory tract, then you can start to shed the virus. And that is how other people will then get infected. So again, the virus is just it's not really even a living thing. Which is a good thing, because that means that if we can stop it from infecting people, then it really can't survive for very long outside of whatever host organism that it has. So what about this COVID-19? So it belongs to a family that's called coronaviruses. The reason they're called that is because that outside shell has some spikes on it, and those are the spikes that attach themselves to a specific protein on the cell that it's invaded, and they just happen to look like crowns. And that corona means crown in Latin. So there's a lot of different species of coronaviruses, and some of them actually just cause the common cold, and we can be exposed to them over time. But they don't, since we generally have exposure to them, we have a certain amount of immunity after we're babies. But this novel coronavirus and coronaviruses that have caused some epidemics in the past 20 years, including SARS, which came out of China as well, and another one called MERS, which came out of the Middle East, are viruses that, coronaviruses that normally infect certain types of wildlife, and they mutated to be able to infect people. And once that mutation happens so that they can jump from an animal to a person, since we have never been exposed to them before, then we don't have any immunity, and that's how come they can be deadly. Additionally, it just so happens that the mutations that have happened in this novel coronavirus, there's mutations that have made it so that that make it easier for the virus to actually get into our cells. So for example, in general, anytime you have a population of viruses, particles that are around, only a certain number of them are successfully going to be able to get into our cells. So some might just never attach, some might attach, but they just don't get in. And from all of the analyses that have been done by scientists to date, since they've been able to isolate and sequence and study the coronavirus, this novel one, they can tell that it just can really lock on. And so that's why it's more infectious than anything that, any similar coronavirus that's been experienced before. So it's kind of a perfect storm that it's never been in humans before, so no one has any type of immunity. And it's really just evolved to be able to easily get into our cells. So those are the features of it that have made it so infectious and so deadly. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm going to lead with a couple questions. One of them is that a lot of people, it's not really a question, but I just want to get a clarification. A lot of people I've seen on Facebook and other places comment on the fact that, wait a minute, coronaviruses are not new. Therefore, the government is trying to trick us into believing this is something new. And I think you just answered that question. But I just want to have you just spend a minute just clarifying that the fact that it's novel coronavirus, what does novel mean in the term coronavirus?
So what it means, so coronaviruses there's a lot of different ones. So coronavirus as a species of viruses is not new. That is true. But this and there's a lot of viruses that are out in nature that we as scientists don't know about. And so this one is new in the sense that it's not something that has ever infected humans. So in terms of the subset of coronaviruses that can infect humans, it's never been detected. But also it's new even in terms of like they've studied its genome, and they can compare it to coronaviruses from other species, and it seems to be a mixture of the family of coronaviruses that can infect bats, but also it has some pieces in it that seem to be more like coronaviruses that infect something called a pangolin, which I guess is like something like an anteater. So somewhere along the way, those two, the two families of coronaviruses that infect those two types of animals came in contact with each other and were able to exchange pieces of their genetic information. And then there were further changes that allowed it to infect people. And these are not, because I think another thing that's out there is that, people in parts of the world, including the US, are saying that it was made in a Chinese lab as a bioterror weapon. People in China are saying that it was made here as a bioterror weapon. But these kinds of mixtures and changes can happen in nature, all on their own. And basically, it's not likely that these came out of a lab and were unleashed on the world to do harm, because it's not logical that if anyone were going to try to make a supercharged coronavirus to infect people, they would have most logically started with, as their basis, one that normally infects people. So these things happen in nature. It's not the first time. And it's really scary to think that, nature can have this dark side. But as we try to look for answers, there's just not anything that supports that this was done intentionally by humans.
Okay, so before we move on to the next part, as we round this out, are there any other questions about coronaviruses and the origins of a coronavirus? You can raise your hands if you have questions. We'll try to call on you. Okay, so we're going to move on without questions there. Therefore, how do we best prevent infection from the coronavirus?
Mm-hmm. So, because the coronavirus is it is a respiratory tract infection, most evidence today suggests that it is spread by droplets. So, from people coughing or sneezing, and so, for example, if you cough or sneeze, there are small droplets of saliva and mucus that are going to be expelled. You might not even really be able to see them, but they always are. And those could fall onto a table. Those could, if you're, I just moved from New York, and before that I lived in DC, so I would give an example of being in the subway, that, if you're in a crowded subway or on a bus, then those can spread around, especially in a confined space. And so then anyone, if they're really close to you, you could just breathe them in. But also, as they fall to surfaces, if you touch them and then touch your eyes, your mouth, etc., or eat without washing your hands, then that's how they're going to be introduced into your body and cause an infection.
Now, I just read somewhere that 80% of people, the estimate 80% of the people who are passing on the virus are not symptomatic, meaning they're not coughing. So if you don't get it from coughing, what is the other way it's spread?
Well, so you might not be coughing, but again, the most likely way that it is mostly getting into your respiratory tract and starting to divide there. And so even when you're breathing or talking, there are just small, droplets of, liquid that come out of you, and they could just be coming out that way. Also, I think we all know that we all touch our faces and rub our, so you could have it shedding out of your nose, and maybe you rub your nose because it's itchy, and then again you touch a surface, etc. It does look too like people who are very sick and infected, then it apparently it can also shed from from feces and maybe even from urine. So again, if people are not practicing hand washing, or in places where there's no water, then again, those are not other ways that it can be being spread.
Okay. I just want to stop for a minute and make sure everybody knows how to raise their hands in case you have questions. Camille, can you take a moment to explain to people how to raise hands?
Sorry, I was muted. So if you're logged on from your computer or your phone, there's a button in the middle of the panel that has like a reactions option. You have the option to raise your hand. And what will happen is that we'll be able to see you guys' hands based on your names and then call on you.
All right, thank you. All right, so going back to Maritza, I just wanted to make sure people had a chance to ask questions along the way, because this is our first time doing a webinar in this way. Maritza?
Yeah, so just with that understanding of how the virus spreads, then that kind of leads to the main messages that we've been hearing from the CDC, the NIH, and local health authorities to really emphasize washing your hands, disinfecting surfaces, and now, because as Donna mentioned, that there is this thought that people could be shedding the virus before they're even sick. The recommendation that people wear masks if they go out in public. Now, the masks that we're being recommended to wear, the whole idea is in case we are infected and we don't know it, that we're not then shedding, like if we're at the grocery store, etc. Those masks, like they're telling you can make a mask out of a bandana, etc. That's not a mask that is going to protect you if for example, say you were around someone and they were coughing, someone who was infected and they're coughing really hard or sneezing a lot. There's nothing about a bandana around your face that can prevent infection. So and the reason why I emphasize that is because it's not a solution to allow us to just go back out in the world and live the way we did before. So it's something that is intended to help, as we're saying, bend the curve to try to prevent new infection. So we all need to go to the grocery store. We all need certain things that we need to do. We can't always be inside all the time. But the idea is that we could maybe further reduce any kind of transmission if we are able to use those types of face coverings. But, and this is something that I've been telling Donna and our family, remember that if you are out and about and you are wearing a mask, when you need to be careful when you take that, about how you use that mask, how you put it on, how you take it off. Because again, once you start putting a mask on, now your hands are near your face, which is what you've been hearing for weeks now, not to touch your face. So be careful about making sure to wash your hands before you put a mask on or take it off. Don't pull the mask down here and just have it hanging out around here, around your mouth. You just had this thing on. maybe it's collecting germs. So really try to make sure that your hands are clean, that you're mostly going behind your head to take it off and put it on.
Before I leave this topic, just a couple more questions. One is, my understanding is that I've heard from some people that, I mean, some of us spit when we speak, right? So and we're not aware of it. So I think that you have to also be conscious of spitters. And also when you sing, you know, a lot of times I've heard that both the exhalation and inhalation can increase the risk of infection.
Right. Well, so then that, yeah, exactly. So that's why there's these recommendations to stay 6 feet away from people for that very reason. That it just is gonna reduce the chance that any kind of droplets from someone talking, etc. That's why it's probably not a good idea right now to be going to church services, for example, where you know, with
Choir practice.
Yep.
So, and being in an enclosed space is more dangerous than being in an open space. I think you addressed that when you talked about the subway.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear, because I think when people understand why we do certain things, it helps people to understand and really conform to doing it the right way. And my final question is, although people are telling us not to, there are certain materials that do a better job of protecting us in addition to protecting other people. Is that correct?
Yes.
In terms of masks?
Right. So like the protective masks that are that the healthcare workers are using, or if they have, and then we're asking to preserve for them, those masks they've been proven through testing to filter out 95% of you know, particles that are smaller than a certain size or larger than a certain size. And so that's part of it. Just the material itself is very tightly woven. And those types of N95 masks also, they actually get fitted to the person's face. So like within a hospital, when someone goes to get one of those, there's supposed to be like a safety person that makes sure that they're, you know, that they're fitted properly. People with beards, for example, if there's a beard that's, you know, the mask is going on it, that it's not going to be flush. And so it doesn't offer the same protection.
Okay. So we have to unfortunately wind this up soon, because we do have some other guests, but I do want you to talk a little bit about treatment and what we can do if we're infected, and also what are the possibilities for a virus or a treatment in the near future.
So first of all, when people are infected, so if you have a fever, for example, right now they're asking you to contact your healthcare provider. They're really probably only going to speak to you remotely. They don't want you to go to the hospital. Unfortunately, there's not enough tests available, and they also take the turnaround time. There's not enough rapid tests. And so it's really important to get in touch with your healthcare provider and describe your symptoms, but more than likely you're going to be asked to stay at home. I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to speak really about, you know, you should really follow the recommendations of your healthcare provider. But in terms of if you are living with family members, then it is important to isolate yourself, or to isolate whoever is sick, preferably in, you know, they should stay in a room. If you bring them food, if they're able to get up, you know, it's best if you can maybe leave the food outside their door and they open the door and get it. Wear gloves when you take those used dishes away, etc. If you only have one bathroom, you might want to be wearing gloves and disinfecting it after they use it. And then just briefly in terms of treatments, right now, again, it's a new virus, and in general, there's not a lot of antiviral medications, meaning medicines that can stop a virus from replicating. And one of the reasons for that is because I told you at the beginning that they hijack your body's machinery to copy themselves. So a lot of the drugs that you might target to stop a virus from copying itself could stop your cells from doing what they need to do. But there are some that are being developed. They've been working on some for a while to treat different other viruses like Ebola and SARS. And so those are the ones that are being tested right now in clinical trials. You've probably all heard about this one that that's used to treat malaria and lupus that our president keeps talking about. Again, that has not been proven to work. And a lot of times when people are really sick, when there's an epidemic like this, doctors will start trying anything that they can. And so you don't know if a patient pulls through, you don't know if it's because of any one particular drug you used, or they were just going to get better anyway. And so typically the way we prove that a drug works is to do clinical trials where you have a group of people that you treat one way, a group of people that you treat another way, and you sort of match them up in terms of any other illnesses they might have. And then you just compare all the data and to figure out if somebody, if it really looks like that treatment made a difference. So in terms of trying anything, again, it's something that should be done, decisions made by a doctor. And I know that fortunately in Detroit, a lot of these clinical trials are underway. So it's likely that anyone who ends up hospitalized will be enrolled in a trial like this. And then the real way to prevent infections is with the vaccine, but that's something that's going to take probably a year, just because of the way that you have to test them first in healthy people to make sure that they don't make them sick, and also to prove that you can create an immune response before because not every vaccine is actually strong enough to end up with a protective response. So it's just something that takes time.
Yeah. So I hear that they have tried and wanted to test them in Africa, and there's been pushback, and it's really horrible that in 2020, people are saying you can't use racist techniques to test a vaccine, and also horrible that people don't really trust even some of the experimental treatments in Detroit because they believe that Detroiters are going to be guinea pigs for the nation. And they will risk our lives in order to protect the lives of other people. So this is my last question before I ask you about 5G, and you can just answer them both at once, and we're going to move on.
So leaving aside the Africa part, because I do think, I know that there was some doctors in France who recommended that, and they say that they weren't recommending it to use Africans as guinea pigs. It was more that because they don't have hospitals as advanced as ours in terms of ventilators, et cetera. And I use that term loosely because we clearly are looking to pretty third world right now in terms of how we're responding. But I'm not defending them, but they were thinking that it was more because they don't have anything else, and the way that, but anyway, and as far as Detroit goes, honestly, I look at the fact that Detroit is being included in these clinical trials as a plus. They're not only being done in Detroit, and I can follow up with you, Donna, to help you find out and get information about clinical trials. They are listed on a government website, so you can see where else the studies are being conducted.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important for us to show that those studies are being done in other places. Yeah. I do want to say before we close out this segment, but that the concept of people introducing treatments to people who they think don't have much to lose is pretty much like Donald Trump's statement. And it's pretty scary to me because all life is precious. And even if people regard certain people's lives as being less protected and therefore more, this is going to be helpful in a less protected environment, it certainly does come across that way. And all of that feeds into narratives of mistrust, which cause less compliance because of a perception that the healthcare industry is not designed for the protection of Black and brown people. And so I do want us to always be conscious of how we communicate things, because that's a big, trust is a big thing. And that 5G narrative just jumps out there because of that. And so I want to thank you for giving us factual information that we can use to really understand how viruses work. There's so much misinformation that's being passed along, and it's important for us to understand how viruses work, why certain things work certain ways, what the concerns are about the use of certain treatments being treated as if they are cure-alls and touted by our president as, hey, everybody just use this because it works and it's a miracle drug, when we don't really know how it impacts people. And with that, I really want to say thank you, Maritza. That has been very informative. I've learned a lot. I think everybody has, and we will definitely try to use this information moving forward to continue informing our community. One last sentence though, 5G, does it make sense or no?
No, no. There's not really anything, there's no way that anything about the way that, cellular transmission happens, like how something gets from a cell tower to our phone, it just doesn't interact in any way with the biology of viruses. So it really wouldn't have any more influence than our electricity or our microwave. I'm so shocked that has come up, because it's just not possible.
Okay, so Angela, I think you had a question maybe. Did we answer your question?
Well, I was just, sort of, it came up, but I do want to, if I can, ask Dr. McIntyre about everybody's perpetuating stuff that says heat can kill it. And that's kind of an abbreviated reality, right? It's not about heat, but it's about the whole process of cleaning and disinfecting and all that. And so I was going to ask her about that, just so we can maybe dispel that, because that is going around on the internet, that enough heat can kill it. So when the weather gets warmer, it'll die. If your house is hot enough, it'll die. Somebody sent me something the other day that said, let people get a temperature as high as possible and it'll kill it. And I'm like, no, it'll kill them first. But yeah. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So first of all, you can't really generalize those things all across. So coronaviruses as a class generally circulate less in hot weather, and that's because they are sensitive to heat. But really, the only way to effectively wipe out enough virus, for example, when we sterilize things, for example, in a hospital or in a lab setting, we put them at like 200 degrees under pressure. And that's how you know that you kill every single one. So you're not, like you said, you would, if your body is trying to heat things up, but to kill things, but it might kill you first. And similarly, I've heard people saying you should drink hot water or sniff up hot water or something. You're only going to damage yourself. Those are not effective ways. Heat's not an effective way to control this virus, except if you're sterilizing surfaces that, like, where you can put it into, a special oven.
Right. But what about a dishwasher?
No, a dishwasher, okay, yes. In a dishwasher, you also have soap, right? There's heat and soap, and the coronavirus, that outside of it, it will come apart in soap. And so that's also why hand washing for an appropriate amount of time is important.
We have one person who's called in with their hand up, and I don't know if we can unmute you. Camille, can you unmute that caller? Okay.
Yes, good evening, Brenda Butler here.
Hi, Brenda.
Good evening, Dr. McIntyre.
Hello.
So when you speak to the medicines that are being used in the hospital on the patients, that puts, I can see that as putting you at a disadvantage, that they're going to use whatever they want to use on you anyway. And so no one is there to sign the papers on whether they can use this particular medicine on you. So that puts you at a disadvantage of dying or living, and you're just putting your life into their hands in trial medication. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, so by law, when you go into a hospital, if they're going to try anything that's experimental, they are supposed to explain that to you, and you're supposed to sign consent. Now, of course, if you go in and you are already at a point where they need to put you on a ventilator, and then therefore they need to put you under, then they're going to be explaining all of this to a family member. So they can't use experimental drugs on you, or drugs that maybe are approved for something else, to treat a disease that it's not approved for unless you give your consent.
Thank you.
Okay, there was a story on the radio today where a young lady said that her brother was 50 years old, was diabetic. She was there when they did all of his vital signs. And when she knew anything, they had put him on oxygen, tied him down to the bed, and put him on a ventilator. And she does know a little about medicine, she says, and no one had her to sign any papers. And he died in 3 days. So, I mean, it just gives a fear to us that they're killing us in these hospitals.
Yeah, that's a really sad story. I think that people are dying very quickly, and the doctors, this is something we've never seen before. And so I understand the distrust, especially based on history. But right now, there's a lot of people that are dying even though they're told everything. Doctors don't really know how to save people, and people with diabetes and other pre-existing conditions are at a particular risk. So yeah, I hope that she can get some answers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that real quickly, I do think that there is a difference between experimental protocols and medical treatment, that doctors do not have to get permission to use the medical treatment they believe is necessary. Right. And I know there's a lot of fear and concern about what's happening on the ventilators because people don't necessarily trust that that is the best choice. What I've also heard, though, is that people go to the hospital so late in the game that they have to go on ventilators. And one of the things you and I talked about was people monitoring their oxygen levels at home, if you're at home, so that if your oxygen level gets too low, you can go to the hospital before it becomes critical. Is that something that it may be contributing to these quick deaths inside the hospital?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't, because we're not being given good enough guidance. They say, come in if you're short of breath. Well, you might decide you're short of breath before I do. And so by the time that you get there, or I get there, then I might have so much less oxygen in all my organs that it's just too late. So it's not apples to apples, right? And so more data would be better, so that if you can call a doctor and say my oxygen levels are below X%, that's a lot more meaningful.
And I have heard about people like Isaac Robinson, our state rep, I believe, who waited so long to go to the hospital that it's harder to help people when they are farther down the road
Yep.
in their whatever the breathing issues are. And so we want people, it's a fine balance between who is even allowed to go to the hospital. And then when people decide to go to the hospital. And I've also heard about people being told to stay home when they should go in.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the equity issues are. Because I think you're more likely to be told by a doctor to go in if that doctor knows you. And many of us don't have a regular healthcare provider.
And also, quite honestly, there's a lot of research that's shown that doctors have different perceptions of risk based on racial and ethnic characteristics. And so the perception of risk for a Black person may or may not be the same. And that's a concern a lot of us have, has been sort of like medical indifference or lack of responsiveness by some medical systems that
Yep.
I think when we can self-care enough to monitor our own oxygen, we can sort of help override that perception of risk.
Right.
Now,
Right.
and thermometers, right? Take your own temperature and use what device did you say we should use?
For the oxygen, it's called a pulse oximeter. It's that little thing they put on your finger. If you ever been in the hospital, you can actually buy them. They have them at the pharmacy.
And they're- go on.
I actually purchased one on Amazon a couple of weeks ago. It was like $30-something. So
They had some at CVS, at least online, for 14 or 15 bucks. So I think there might be a range in pricing depending on some factors, but yeah. That's one of the things ECN is going to be trying to find resources for, is to help people purchase their own thermometers and pulse oximeters so that everybody who we know of who is working, who's dealing with this infection, can at least self-monitor at home. And I really do want to thank Dr. McIntyre for making me aware of this process, because it never occurred to me, and I was able to share it with a few people who are at risk. So this has been great for me anyway. I hope for other people as well. If we don't have any further questions raised, then I think we're just going to thank you for joining us today and providing us with so much information that we are going to make sure our community really does understand. So thank you for joining us. And what we will do is, as we have other questions, we'll continue to ask you those questions and post them on Facebook as we hear more information, so that we make sure that we understand from somebody who studied viruses what all of this means. So Maritza, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye, Donna.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. McIntyre. So this is Angela Wilson. We're going to go back to our slideshow. We have some resource information we want to share with you. This will take a few minutes, and then we have another speaker that will share resources and perspective. We're excited about that, and then we'll continue from there. So I'm going to be sharing about testing. A lot of people are asking about testing and the opportunity to be tested, and that kind of information. So there is, the first step obviously is to contact your doctor. You can pull up to a line, but you will not be serviced if you just drive up to the state fairgrounds. Or could we go back to the earlier slide? Or one more, thank you, right there. So don't drive up without a prescription from your doctor. Basically, the way we understand it is you contact the doctor and they will send a prescription and make an appointment for you, or they will send you the prescription and have you make the appointment yourself. It could happen either way. On our next page, you can go to the next page. We have a list. We're going to leave this up for a second. These are all doctors' offices with the phone numbers that are all here on the east side. for people in this community. There's a total, I think, of 9 listed here. Some of these clinics you may recognize. So if you don't have insurance, or you don't have your own doctor, or you can't reach your doctor, copy down some of these names. This will be on Facebook as well. We're going to add this list to our resource button on our website as well, so that you can get to a doctor. But you want to make sure, as Dr. McIntyre said, you actually have, have a sense that you are, you have a fever, or you feel that you're not able to get enough oxygen into your system. If you have a thermometer, take your temperature, so when you call the doctor, you can tell them what your temperature is. If you have an opportunity to get a pulse, pulse oximeter, so you can know what your oxygen penetration is in your system, but at least try to, have some information for them so they can truly evaluate you and send you for a checkup. If it's a doctor that you're calling that you don't know, you obviously want to tell them your health conditions, if you know what they are. If you know that you're diabetic, if you know that you're hypertensive, if you know that you're obese, if you know that you have an autoimmune issue, any of those things, make sure you tell these doctors, because obviously they don't know you. Let's go to the next slide. Here's a few more clinics that are accepting people with or without insurance. And they talk to you on the phone. Some of them may be able to do a video conference with you through your phone or your computer. Okay. So we wanted to just leave those up for a few minutes. And the process to actually get tested, the doctor will tell you how to manage that once they decide to give you a prescription. They will either call in for you and make an appointment and send the prescription ahead of you, or they will send you the prescription digitally, electronically, through email, and then they will tell you who to call to make the appointment. Okay. So now we're going to go into our other resources. So we can go to the next slide. And we're going to call on Savannah. Next slide. Savannah, are you ready?
Yes, peace and community all. I'm Savannah Brewer. And so our first resource that we want to share with you is unemployment. We know a ton of Michiganders are impacted and need to file. And so if you need to apply for your benefits, you can do so online or by phone. It is probably easier to do it online. That way you can read the questions and submit your answers that they are asking you. You can go to michigan.gov/UIA, or if you do choose to call, it's 866-500-0017. Governor Whitmer's Executive Order 2020-10 has expanded the unemployment benefits to sick workers, workers who are caring for their loved ones, and first responders who have become ill or need to be quarantined. The governor's order also extends access to benefits to unemployed workers. So your benefits will be go back up to 26 weeks from 20 weeks. And the application eligibility period will be increased from 14 days to where you'll now have 28 days to be able to file. And the in-person registration and work search requirements that you normally would have to do have been suspended. So you don't have to insert the jobs that you have been looking for. That piece is suspended for now. And go to the next one. And when you are filing your claim, it's going to be filed by your last name. And there is a schedule that you will need to follow. So if you schedule online, first, the website is open 24 hours, 7 days a week. And if your last name begins with A through L, you want to file your claim on either a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. If your last name begins with M through Z, you want to file your claim on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And if for any reason you miss your day, then everyone can file on Saturday who has missed their day for that week. If you are calling into the call center, The call center is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday, but it is still by last name. So for last names beginning A through L, you want to call on Mondays and Wednesdays. Or if your last name begins with M through Z, you want to call on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you miss your days and you plan to call, then you want to do that on Friday and Saturday. The days or times that your claim is filed does not impact whether or not you receive benefits or how much your benefits will be. Additionally, your claim can be backdated to the date that you were laid off or let go from your employer due to COVID-19.
Good evening. Hope everyone is well. This is Dylan Brown. The next resource we are going to cover deals with the Eastside Emergency Food Assistance. Whatever your emergency is, there are resources out there that is available to you. The first one we're going to deal with is food for children under 18. DPS food distribution is Mondays and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. I believe they're doing breakfast and lunch. Charter schools food distribution is Monday through Friday from 8 to 1 p.m. Some of the schools that are listed are East English Village Prep, Southeastern High School, Denby High School, Detroit Enterprise Academy, Charter, Covenant House Academy, Detroit, Detroit Edison Public School Academy, Detroit Enterprise Academy, Detroit Prep, the Butso Family Center, and the Farewell Recreation Center. And for groceries that are also available, they are at the Butso Family Center from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. every other Monday. And Coleman Young Recreation Center has every other Saturday for groceries. Next slide, please. Eastside Emergency Food Assistance food pantries by appointment only, Bethany Lutheran Church. You can access them at 313-885-7721. Again, that's appointment only. The Salvation Army Conner Creek Corps and Community Center, 313-822-2800. And that's Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can just walk in there and they will be able to service you. The Nativity of Our Lower Pantry, 313-922-0033. They're serving zip code 48213. So if that's your zip code, they will service you. My Father's Business, 313-642-0277. They are serving zip codes 48205, 48213, 48214, 48215, 48224, 48225, 48230, and 48236. And again, that's My Father's Business. And then you have St. Jude Emergency Food Pantry, 313-372-0380. And they're serving zip codes 48205, 48224, 48225, 48234, and 48236. And you must bring an ID and confirmation of number in the household. Next slide. And then food for our seniors or older adults, Focus Hope, the Eastside Food Center. They can be reached at 313-494-4600. And that's for seniors, older adults ages 60 and up. Friday pickup ends at 12 o'clock noon. Our older adults and seniors can also pick up 5 days worth of meals every Wednesday from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that's located at the Butso Family Life Center. I'm sorry, the Butso Family Center at 7737 Kercheval. And the Farwell Recreation Center, and that's at 2711 East Outer Drive. And that's it, thanks.
Peace and gratitude, everybody. Matthew Green with ECN by the way of AmeriCorps. And we're going to get down to the money. Let's talk about these stimulus checks. Okay, first of all, who should you call? You should call the IRS.
I'm sorry, Matt. Go back one slide, Camille. No, the other way.
Yeah, it should be. Okay. Yep. There we go. Up.
Now forward one.
One more forward. Yep.
There you go.
Perfect. All right. So first of all, let's talk about the money. How much you should be expecting to get. This depends a little bit on income and the number of people in your household. But for each person, about $1,200 for individuals and about $2,400 for couples. And also, you will receive an additional $500 for any dependent that you have living in your household that's under the age of 17. What would you need to qualify for this payment? Most people should get it if you file your 2018 and 2019 tax returns. You should be already eligible, and they will the IRS will calculate that into your funds, and if you have direct deposit, they'll automatically be deposited into your account. Mostly everyone receives a check except for the 10%. So people who are making over the required income, any high income households will not receive the money. Any single person that's grossing over $75,000 will not receive that income, and any married couple that's grossing over $150,000 will not receive that income. So
can I just clarify though that they will not receive the maximum amount. They will receive monies on a sliding scale, and then it will go away. So if you make over $75,000 as an individual, you'll receive a portion of that $1,200.
Thank you. Now,
Mm-hmm.
well, the stimulus check, it will not be treated the same as a tax refund in most cases. The exemption will be for past due child support. So if you owe past due child support, you will not be receiving any of those dollars. Also, it will not be taxed at a later date, so you do not have to worry about that as well. So if anybody's thinking about they have to file for this money, that will not be required. Could you go to the next slide, please? If you need any information about what you need for requirements, tax returns, and things of that nature, you can contact the IRS at www.irs.gov/coronavirus for any upcoming details about the money, when it comes and things like that. There's not really a clear date to when the checks will start being released, but there's a lot of gospel about 2 to 3 weeks within they'll start releasing those checks, but there's no concrete date that's out there. You need to make sure that you have direct deposit information with the IRS. There are a lot of resources out there. The Treasury Department is planning to develop a web-based portal for individuals to provide bank information for them. I'm hearing information that if you do not have direct deposit and you wish to receive a paper check, that will take a lot longer. Some sources are saying up to about maybe 20 weeks. It all depends. But I would really encourage everyone to make sure you fill out direct deposit form for the payment. Also making sure that you have that 2018, 2019 tax return done. There are resources out there. If you have not filed yet, you can go to irs.gov/coronavirus as well to file a simple tax return for 2019. And just ask a few questions just so you can make sure that you are eligible for that check. Also, if you have not filed yet, you can still file up to that July deadline. My apologies. Make sure you get that in by July, and you will still be able to be eligible for the stimulus check. So just making sure that you filling out that direct deposit so you can get your money in a timely fashion, making sure that you file for your 2019 and 2018 tax returns, If you need any information, once again, irs.gov/coronavirus will be a very good resource there for any needs about filing the taxes and getting your direct deposit.
Thank you, Jay. So before we move to the next section, I see that we have one hand raised. So for questions, I just want to answer that question real quick before we move on to the next portion. Hello?
Oh, yes, Brenda Butler again. I sent I sent a text to Angela. You indicated that if you wanted to speak, you could raise your hand, but persons calling in a dial in order to speak will need to enter *9 for your attention. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next section. If there are no more questions.
Camille, can you hear me?
Yep.
Just wanted to say one thing about the, for people who are on Social Security or receiving benefits through the Social Security Administration, they will automatically get their stimulus checks. They don't have to do anything because they're already in the database and they're already doing direct deposit.
Yes, but there is a special situation for SSI disability. So just want to let that be known. You can contact IRS and they can give you more information about that. But there is special qualifications for SSI disability as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of scams that have unfortunately been happening now. The first one is actually about the federal stimulus checks. There are people who have been receiving emails from scammers who have been posting as like government agents asking people for their bank information, their PayPal, other financial information. These are a scam. These are totally a scam. You don't have to, do anything to receive, your payment except for file your tax return. The IRS is not going to call to, verify your banking or routing information. You do not have to make a payment or give out any personal information except filing your tax return. So, don't open your door to anyone claiming to be a government official, asking you this kind of information. If anyone calls you, just don't give them any of your personal or banking information. If you're going to receive or you want to communicate with the IRS, you should only use the contact options on any official letter sent by the IRS. And if you go online, the IRS website is a .gov website. So just as kind of a general rule of making sure you're looking at the right government information. Scammers are also using robocalls and text messages to get this information. So, again, if you get a text message about saying it's from the IRS, they want to confirm your banking information. That is not the way that anyone is getting these stimulus checks, and that is, again, a scam. The second scam to watch out for is anything about anyone offering, coronavirus testing or cures. There have been scam robocalls asking for offering free home testing kits. Maybe saying, promoting fake cures and trying to sell you health insurance. Don't click on the links in these text messages. If you get an email, don't click on them. As was discussed earlier, there is currently not a cure or a vaccine for COVID-19. And when that happens, like a flu shot, you will get them from a pharmacy or from your doctor. You will not be sent it in the mail. So yeah, and if you get an email or a pop-up information asking for like your financial information or anything else regarding, receiving a COVID-19, not to open it. Don't give them any of your information, and to just in general be like cautious about any kind of attachments that are on your emails that look weird. Regardless of who sent them, there's a lot of spam and a lot of kind of things that can mess with your computer that will look like they're from a friend of yours, but aren't necessarily. So just kind of be cautious with that. And just in general, like don't text or email out your personal financial information. If you want to make sure, if you're doing that, if you need to do like online banking, and make sure that it is actually your bank's website. And then, so when you're online, you can see that there's often a little like lock at the far left corner, like right before it has like, www.bankofamerica.com. There'll be a little lock, and that'll show you that it is, a secure website. So if anyone has any questions about that.
Jesse, this is Angela. I just wanted to share today, I got a text message offering me utility assistance. And so I clicked on it to see if it was a resource we should be sharing. And then what comes up is another site, and it's like eligibility assistance, but there's no organization or government name attached to it. I'm clear it's a scam. So I want to caution people, they are texting these things as well, and they say things that you may need, but don't trust it if you don't know the source. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thanks, Angela, for sharing that. Yeah, I've definitely gotten a couple of like weird text messages about like, do you need help with your unemployment? And it's like, I've never put my information in anywhere about needing help with that, nor do I need unemployment. So if you get texts for services that you that you've never signed up for, or don't remember signing up for, the best thing is just to delete it. It's probably either a scam or, someone trying to get your information.
All right, so let's keep it moving to the next slide.
And so our next resource is our Eastside Community Network COVID-19 Crisis Hotline. And the hotline is a messaging service system where residents, small businesses, and youth can call in to get resources as they are impacted by the pandemic that we are all suffering through and surviving through right now. The hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And for residents, you can call into the number at 313-364-9423. Again, it's 313-364-9423. For our small businesses, you can call the hotline at 313-364-9439. Again, 313-364-9439. And for our youth out there, we didn't forget about you, and you can call in at 313-364-9325. Again, that's 313-364-9325. And any of these hotlines will be able to connect you all with the resources. And what it is that you will call in and you can leave a message, and our staff will respond to you within 24 to 48 hours with the resources available to you.
All right, and I just want to be clear about a couple things regarding this. If, for example, you're trying to get your water shut on and you're not getting the response that you need, contact us. If you're being threatened with eviction, contact us. If you can't get to testing, contact us. And if you have an urgent issue, we'll make every effort to get back to you more urgently. We want to make sure that every resource that we just shared is delivered as promised. And so we've shared how to get resources, but a lot of times it's trying to access those resources. I think another thing is right now during these lockdown hours or whenever people are at home, there are some people who are experiencing domestic violence, whether it's a young person or you're being threatened to be put out, whatever. Those are also times when you may want to reach out and get some help. And so we do monitor the hotline between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. so that if you have a real-time issue, we will monitor it and try to respond as quickly as possible, because we don't want people to feel like they're all alone, and we know systems don't always work as they should. And please spread the word and let other people know that they have resources and there are people out there trying to help them. You know, if you're hungry, if you just need someone to talk to, please reach out. Okay.
So if you are joining us tonight, or if you are watching us, our recording, and you would like to stay informed with Eastside Community Network, you can do so by sending your email address to Jessie Blount at jblount@ecn-detroit.org. That's JBLOUNT at ECN-Detroit, spelled out, .org. And this service is our Leap Alert. It is a weekly electronic newsletter that we send and updating you with all of the community resources that are available. You can also opt to text 55469. It is a text message servicing system, and you can enter in the message ECN, and this service is messaging is updated as needed. Again, you can text 55469 from your cell phone and enter into the message ECN to be able to receive those text messages and stay informed with what's happening in your community. You can also stay connected with us by visiting our website, www.ecn-detroit.org. You can like us on Facebook at Eastside Community Network, and you can also follow us on Instagram at the Eastside Community Network.
Okay, this is Angela Wilson again. And you may have noticed that in our resources, we did not share about water issues. That is because we have a special guest on the line with us, Monica Lewis Patrick, AKA the Water Warrior. She's an educator, an entrepreneur, and human rights activist and advocate. She has served as the Director of Community Outreach and Engagement since 2009. She was unanimously elected by the board of We the People of Detroit to be a president and CEO. Monica is actively engaged in almost every struggle on behalf of Detroit residents. She is an active member of the People's Water Board Coalition, U.S. Human Rights Network, Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, and the DREAM.org, and was named the World Water Justice Council in October of 2015. As a former lead legislative policy analyst for the Detroit City Council, Monica has authored legislation, conducted research, and delivered constituency services to thousands of city residents. Monica Lewis Patrick attended the historic Bennett College. She is a graduate of East Tennessee State University with a bachelor's degree in social work and psychology and a master's of arts of liberal studies degree and with a concentration in criminal justice, sociology, and public management. She is currently one of the leaders and at the forefront of the water rights struggle in Detroit. So we want to bring on our special guest speaker, Monica Lewis Patrick. We're going to take the slides down. .
Thank you so much, Angela, for that introduction. You were really very generous and very kind, and I appreciate it. And also just appreciate being with the Eastside CNN, and wanted to thank Dr. McIntyre for all of her wisdom that was shared. But just to quickly make sure that people are updated as to where we are right now in the water struggle, of course, folks will know that Detroit has been struggling around water equity and justice for a couple of decades now. So the water struggle is not new to us. We are new to this pandemic in terms of water struggles. But what we know is that what Detroiters are paying about 120% increase over the last 10 years for their water. We know that we are looking at over 100,000 households that have been shut off from water since 2014, approximately 168,000. We also know that it is extremely difficult to get your water restored once the water has been turned off. Up until a couple of weeks ago, Wayne Metro had no pathway to restoration if your water was turned off. It was only if you were still in a position of being threatened with a shut off that you could get assistance. That has changed in the last few weeks, and we're still testing how progressive that application and that updated policy is. The other thing that folks have to be mindful of is that people are still very fearful of the fact that there is a policy in the state of Michigan, if you do not have running water, that your children can be taken. So as many of us know that there is an executive order that the governor issued a little bit over a week ago. That executive order came with a couple of stipulations. Those stipulations are that there must be a moratorium on water shutoffs of all publicly owned municipal systems. So that does not apply. To private systems. We also know that there must be a reporting out of all public municipal systems as it relates to their water shutoff data and also their restoration data. That has been something over the last decade that we have been challenged in Detroit and Flint with being able to obtain. We also know that there are significant numbers of shutoffs, and this is where we're very concerned because we believe that the mayor's numbers are very low. As a matter of fact, we believe that those numbers do not reflect what is going on at the neighborhood level. If you look at data that was released by Bridge Magazine in January, we know that out of 23,000 shutoffs, that 9,500 of those households were still shut off in January. And so we know that usually when people are struggling, we have households that we have met with for over the last 4 years where water in the last few months have been shut off for less than 38 cents. We've had people shut off for 7 cents, 10 cents. So if you're talking about families that are on a fixed income that may have anywhere from 2 to 4 to 3 children residing in those households, and that person is shut off for 38 cents and now has found themselves having to pay the restoration fee and then to enter into a 10, 30, 50 plan or enter into the RAP program, which still on its face may not be affordable, then what you're going to find is more and more Detroiters are going to be struggling to maintain access to water and sanitation. If you're looking at research and data, there is a professor at Michigan State by the name of Dr. Elizabeth Mack, and Dr. Mack in 2017 predicted that we would have a national crisis that would lead to about 35.6% of the nation unable to afford their water rates. Well, based on what we are projecting and anticipating, just looking at research and knowing that this pandemic is going to create a major transference of any wealth that may be left in our communities will be transferred out because people will not be able to bear up the increasing cost of staying and sheltering in place and the increasing cost of utilities, and especially those being water. So some of our work has been to do a couple of things. One has been to continue to lift that there must be a state policy for water affordability. So there is work that is being done with the University of Michigan Law School and O'Day Salim and his team to create a water policy for the state that we hope that can support the governor's signature and the legislative support. And it does include not just an urban component, but a rural component as well. We're also working to build with national partners around the stimulus, making sure that there is a water affordability component in the next couple of stimulus bills that are put forward. Because what we know is that if there's any money that's going to be committed to infrastructure, we know that Detroit will definitely be a part of that because of the significance of our water infrastructure, not only to Michigan, but to the Great Lakes. And so with that, we must tie bar that to community benefits agreement and job creation. So a large part of what we want to lift up there is the HUD Section 3 component that is used in building that Congressman Conyers actually was a part of drafting and leading on about 45 years ago. We believe that it could be a great model for water infrastructure, jobs, training, and contracts in this right now moment. So that is a piece that we're hoping that people will get behind and continue to push for. We cannot have dollars allocated for infrastructure and not have a say-so in how those dollars are spent. So we're hoping too that people will be supportive of making sure that there is going to be a maintenance of community oversight within the NAPE, which is your National Environmental Protection Agency, and that will allow us to have say-so as development is happening and investment is being shifted toward infrastructure. As it relates to local, we still are in desperate need to make sure that we maintain pressure and oversight over the mayor and what is happening with water restorations. And then also not just turning water on, but actually moving toward in this city and across the state, keeping water on. So you will hear a lot of conversation over the next weeks and months, and it may take us a couple of years, but we've got to have it. We must usher in the human right to water in the city of Detroit and across the state of Michigan. And so there will be a lot of conversations around how can we create more equity and justice around how we are investing in our infrastructure. How can we make sure that as we're looking at the cost and the burden to Detroiters, there's going to be a need to renegotiate the 83-17 split with the suburbs that is costing us about 10% of our overall water costs within DWSD. We're also wanting to make sure that we're going to be looking at ways that we are ensuring that that infrastructure maintains ownership and governance and control by Detroiters. So we really want to restructure, especially if we're looking at our charter, ways that we can strengthen oversight and governance. Some of those things may have to be litigated over time because they're tie-barred to the bankruptcy. But whomever controls the water will definitely control the people and the land of the city of Detroit. And we believe that we have the divine moment of being able to take back power and take back control if we can move as a unit and work in cooperation and collaboration. We know too that it's going to be critical to the region as it relates to PFAS and other contaminants because there's already been a release of many permits to allow the processing of those contaminants in our own backyard. So it's going to take all of us working in concert together to be supportive of clean, safe, and affordable water for all, and definitely in the city of Detroit. And then if you look at your numbers, I just think it would be critical for us to continue to look at the number of people that are still in shut-off status. With you providing water to 40% of the state of Michigan, about 3.8 million Michiganders drink from a well that the residents of Detroit have invested in and continue to pay for. And what you're finding is in cities like Detroit and Flint, we have the most egregious water shutoff policies of any of the 126 municipalities and townships that are part of that same system. Many of them have policies that say they can't shut off water. It doesn't matter how much the resident owes. Some of them have policies that say that they will only shut off water after you have missed 3 consecutive cycles of billing, which could be anywhere from 9 to 12 months. So you could go a whole year before you're threatened with a shutoff. But to, in the middle of a pandemic, for it to have taken as long as it has taken, and for it to be as slowful and as clumsy in its rollout, it really should be alarming to the residents of Detroit as to who really is invested in our health and welfare. So I will step back and take questions at this time.
Well, let me lead with the question. You and I had some conversation, Monica, over Facebook about what the governor's executive order is and what the city of Detroit is actually doing. And it seemed like there were some discrepancies between the two. One of which is some people think that they have to have $25 to shut their water back on. And that's not true, is it?
No, you don't have to have $25. What has happened is the governor has put up the first $25 to get water restored. But this is where we really want people to be very aware of what you're committing to. You are entering a deferment plan. So the $25 is the amount of money that is allowed to position you in a deferment. And what you're agreeing to is you're agreeing to any past debt that is connected with that residence and any debt accrued during the shelter in place pandemic. And as soon as the pandemic is declared to be lifted, then all of the past debt and then all of the debt accrued during the pandemic is all going to be compiled and come due. So you will be responsible for all of that debt at the end of what they have decided is the end of the pandemic. And so that's the piece that I always want to make people aware of. It's very, I have a lot of trepidation in knowing that we have to get water on and restored to residents in order to save their lives and curb the spread of this disease. But at the same time, I know that it's going to put Detroiters and many residents under the burden and the weight of debt that many of them will never get from under. And so at the same time, we're, very cautious in making sure that people fully understand what they're agreeing to.
Yeah. And one of the things that you recommended is that people can contribute to a fund that will help people with their bills when they get reconnected, so that we don't see a cycle of reconnection because public health is at risk, and then disconnection when the public feels safe again. How would they contribute?
Well, what we're asking folks to do is to do a couple of things. Is that our website, We the People of Detroit, we will be listing more information. There's actually a sheet that we've been working on with the University of Michigan to make sure that information is provided to folks, not only in terms of what you need to do to prepare within your household, but what you would need to do to prepare should a loved one or your children become sick, documentations and things to prepare should you actually succumb to this pandemic. These are the things that we're trying to get people prepared to think through. The other thing that we're encouraging folks to do is that if you're looking at having your water restored, making sure that people are participating in a flushing and filter system, because what we know is that if you are blessed to still have water, please use the water coming out of your tap. Please only use bottled water and hoard bottled water if you don't have any other water source. But what we're finding is throughout the city is that there is going to be a situation for many families, hundreds of families, where it's going to take them months, possibly years, to get any kind of water restoration to their homes. And so knowing that, we need people to start thinking more in the collective framework as opposed to how you're just going to survive this, but how are you going to help your neighbors and others survive it. If you don't know the people next to you, please reach out and figure out who your neighbors are, who's your help on your block. Because what we also know is that under this new discretion of powers, that this president has 138 more powers than he had before. So he has the ability to take over airways, take over communications, TV, all the things that you've grown very comfortable with. We also have to make sure that we're spreading information. We, the People of Detroit, has partnered with the University of Michigan and Wayne State to translate the information that we need to get out to the community to get them restored, because we also know that there is a language barrier and there's a literacy issue among our community. So being able to take this moment and deputize yourselves and be a part of spreading this information to your churches, getting water on is our primary focus. We've got to think through this by triaging. First, we want to get water on. Second, we want to educate community all across the city and around the state around water affordability planning, because we don't have to continue to shut off water and then restore water and wait for a pandemic to then figure out how to get water back on again. We can actually maintain a system where we keep water on, and then we begin to develop policies that will maintain an infrastructure and an investment in that infrastructure that's based on a tiered system of affordability. So that system is something that, and that information is something that's going to be shared on not only We the People's site, but we're going to be pushing it out in open source ways, because we want more people to be informed and how they can be empowered. water affordability is not about charity. It's about creating a rate structure where low-income folks can pay what they can afford, and everybody's investing in that system and maintaining it.
Okay. So are there any other questions that other people have? We want to make sure others have an opportunity to ask questions. So raise your hand if you have questions. So, well, oh, go on.
I have a question. Just thank you for that information. There were some things that I did not know myself, specifically as it relates to the Water Restart program and just residents who take advantage of this are actually agreeing to pay that past due or accrued debt. Once this ban is lifted, I know, Monica, that you said that residents will be financially responsible, but then is there any plan that you know of or discussion or resources that will be available to those who are not working, but possibly their water has been shut off, you know, long before COVID-19 even came into play? Are there going to be any financial resources or anything that they can do to help with that debt?
Well, see, this is the challenge that we're facing in Detroit, is that what the mayor has offered really is not a fix, it's a Band-Aid. And so what you have is the persons that were already struggling to pay their water bills in the city that had already entered in what's known as the RAP program, or they had entered into what is the 10-30-50 plan, where you have to pay 10% of your arrears plus maintain your current. And then once you fall behind on the 10%, then it bumps up to 30%, and then it increases to 50%. Well, what you know is if a person's struggling paying 10%, then you know they're going to be challenged paying 30 and 50% of that debt. And we have families that have water debt for leakage, for lack of landlords maintaining the property. I mean, you have all kinds of things. In the wintertime, pipes may have burst. Just those kinds of challenges. And we have to remind people of the demographics of the city. 39% of the city lives in poverty. 60% of the households in the city are headed up by single women with anywhere from 2 to 4 children. And then 70% of the population doesn't live in the city, that works in the city. So when you have that kind of tax drain on your community, and you have an infrastructure that was built for 2 million people that is now only providing service to about 718,000, then what we're finding repeatedly is that the programs that have been created have been more about creating a political ploy that will appear to be a fix, but really is not solving what is the causation of the issue. And the causation of the issue is that Detroit cannot afford to subsidize an infrastructure that's providing water to 40% of the population of Michigan. And so what you're going to find is over and over, because wages have not kept pace with the increasing cost of the water infrastructure, along with the fact that the federal government up until 1977 was contributing 68 to 69% of the dollars into our infrastructure. They're now only contributing between 7 and 9% of those dollars. That gaping hole has now landed on the backs of individual ratepayers. And on its face, it just can't, they cannot bear up. So what we're going to see is you're going to see a large portion of residents that were barely hanging on now forced over into the status of unaffordable water rates and struggling to maintain some water and sanitation. So for those that are seeking to get their water restored, we are encouraging people to call Wayne Metro at 313-386-9727. Wayne Metro at 313-386-9727. We, much like what you're doing there, Donna, at ECN, we are encouraging folks to call us at We the People of Detroit on our water rates hotline. That number is 1-844-42-WATER, 1-844-42-WATER. If you're not finding Wayne Metro being responsive in terms of getting your water restored, you're finding that there's a major delay in getting that water reconnected, please call us, or we're also encouraging you to call ECN and make those reports so that we can monitor and we can make sure we're being vigilant about water restoration.
Yeah. So, Monica, nobody knows water like you, and nobody has done more. Everywhere I go, when I travel, people who know I'm from Detroit ask me, do you know Monica Lewis Patrick? So you are definitely internationally known, right? And so we really appreciate the work that you've put in. I think the challenge that some of us have in community development is we have not always worked as well as we could with people like yourself. And so when it comes time to add whatever influence we have to the work that you have, how can we work to support you better? Because ultimately, I think we all have a shared interest in ensuring that people have access to affordable water and nobody's shut off. No family goes without water because of ability to pay. So do you have thoughts about how we can work more effectively with you?
Well, I really think that the work that's going to be ahead is about really envisioning beyond this trauma into transformation. And part of that transformation has to be, how can we leverage this moment of intersectionality around doing green development better, making sure it's tie-barred to a workforce development strategy. Skilled trades has to be a part of that idea. Also using the concept of HUD Section 3 in terms of jobs, training, and contracts being created intentionally in our communities. I know some of the work we do at We the People of Detroit is to try to be very intentional about making sure everything from our food vendors to our transportation contracts are mostly with women of color owned businesses. Just that kind of very intentionally woven work is what it's going to call for in this moment, because as we know, funds are going to dry up in some areas and then it's going to blossom in others. Being willing to come to the table and do collective visioning so that we can look at how we can share and leverage not only ideas but resources. I know that I believe there's work that we do well, and then I believe there's work like you and others do extremely well. And so we're hoping as opportunities present themselves, we're working on an idea to look at ways to generate revenue that is a development concept that would allow us to recycle wastewater and really create some revenue generating ideas for community to reinvest in itself. And so we would need partners like yourself and ECN to sort of help move those kinds of visions forward. So I definitely see opportunities. I'm definitely, in spite of Corona, I'm still excited about the future and what I see coming from young people, the ingenuity, the creativity, the willingness to roll up their sleeves. I'm encouraged by elders that see the worth and value in intergenerational work and collaboration. Very excited about what I see in other countries, especially from women of color leading in work around water and sanitation and infrastructure, from Cuchabamba to Zimbabwe, to Sierra Leone, to Ireland and the Middle East. You are hearing and participating in conversations with Detroit, and I really believe our ability to, through cooperative work and self-determination, to be able to have weathered storms similar to what we're looking at right now. So the future is bright, and a big part of that is going to be the same people that put the world on wheels are going to be the people that move us past Corona into a transformative future.
Yeah. Well, that's compelling. And so I really, really do look forward to working with you and not letting this opportunity go to waste, that now that we're saying there's a mandate to connect everybody and all of these investments are being made in our social safety net, we need to demand more. And we'll be working with you to figure out how that plays out and how our partners on the community can join with you in trying to create a new future. So I don't know if there are any other questions. I don't see any other hands up. But if not, then I know that we're going to be, we don't want you to be a stranger. We're going to be connecting sometime in the near future. And then let us know when you need our help, and we'll try to make sure that we bring volunteers or whatever to bear on anything that you're doing. So
there's some information that I'll be sending to you in the next day or so. As a matter of fact, we already believed that we would get ECN's name in supporting getting all of this information in one infographic. So we hope to get you guys to sign on and share that with everybody on your team.
okay.
Thank you so much, ECN.
Thank you. So I think we have a couple other items on our agenda. I don't want to forget that Alex Allen wants to talk to us about parks, recreation, and we didn't put that on the agenda because I forgot to mention it. But Alex, can you just take a couple minutes and update us on what's going on with parks before we move forward?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great, great. Thanks again, Donna. This has been a great forum. Really excited, and the staff has done a good job of organizing things. This has been I'm glad you recorded because it's been good information. A couple of things. Those of you who don't know me, I'm with the Chandler Park Conservancy, and we have been in close communication with the City of Detroit Recreation Department, GSD, to talk about how we deal with parks. As you know, during this process, for being social distancing, people still need to kind of get out from time to time, and our parks is a place to do that. But there's some restrictions in the parks. You need to practice the social distancing, so if you're walking in the park and things like that, you want to make sure you're 6 feet apart. You will notice in the next couple of weeks, not next couple of weeks, but next couple of days, that the parks are going to be shutting down some of the facilities if they haven't done this already. Parking lots are going to be closed off, so there won't be places for you to really kind of park. What they were saying was that people were congregating in the parking lots and having parties and things like that, and that didn't contribute to what we're trying to do here with the COVID-19. So you'll see some changes happening in the parks as far as making sure that folks don't use the play equipment, the swings and things like that. At this particular time, we are encouraging people to come and walk through the parks, but no social gathering of any kind. The restrooms will be closed, water fountains will be cut off, so there won't be any type of things like that available. But we do encourage people, again, to come out, but really practice the social distancing. Some of the parks, you'll find that the rims have been taken down to keep kids from playing or adults from playing basketball, because we want to discourage that type of activity. So you'll just see the parks, they're open for walking, things like that, riding your bike. But some of the other amenities in the park will be blocked off. You'll see some new signage go up throughout the parks. The City of Detroit is going to be making some announcements about programming in the near future. They haven't officially made the final decisions, so I'll let them make those announcements. Ourselves and some of the other conservancies and groups across the city, we have either postponed or are going to cancel some of our activities. It's kind of on a wait and see basis. So we are monitoring the situation right now, day by day. It changes, just trying to get more information. Our goal right now is to try to help get the word out to people about social distancing, even when you come outside and you go into the park. So with that, Donna, I can address any questions that maybe somebody might have.
Yeah. And I do want to apologize. You were on the agenda. I just didn't see it. But yeah, any questions? I know there's a lot of conversation about people gathering in the park in big groups playing basketball. So on my route to and from the grocery store, and I had to drop off food to my mother, so I sometimes check to see if that's what I'm seeing on the streets, and I really haven't seen that. Have you been seeing that at Chandler Park or hearing about that happening at Chandler Park, Alex?
Yeah, so maybe about a week ago, there was a lot of that, but the city's doing a good job and the mayor's doing a good job of getting the messages out. There are NPO officers who have been going through the parks and they've seen a decline of that in recent days. So people are starting to understand that this is a very serious situation and they're taking more precautions and they're not hanging out in the park as much. So it's starting to turn around as far as people understanding what they need to do.
Right. I think that people keep circulating one or two pictures and acting like it's happening in real time. And we need to stop because there's a lot of demonizing our young people happening right now. on at least my Facebook page. And I like to always try to shine a light that some people took a little longer to understand, but they really are complying right now because the streets are pretty quiet. That said, we are encouraging people to get out and exercise safely, right?
Correct. We want people to get out and exercise. Like I said, walking, jogging, riding your bike. Just make sure you practice your social distancing. If you want to kind of take a look at what that looks like, see what that looks like, we have a video on our website that was produced by SimCog that kind of shows you what that looks like when you're walking down the trail in the park. So you can go to chatlerparkconservancy.org and take a look at that video. Most of the major parks across the city have that same video posted. So we're working together. We meet with the city once a week, and they have found a decline in people congregating in parks. So people are starting to get the message.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Thanks, Donna, for the time.
All right. No, thank you. And if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to us. Again, if you have any concerns on one of the hotlines, or reach out to Alex Allen at what email address and phone number, Alex?
They can reach me at aallen@chatlerparkconservancy.org, or they can call us at 313-264-1414.
Okay. All right. So I think we are now formally in a question and answer period. So if anybody has additional questions before we move on to our next topic, please raise your hands. And I don't see any hands raised. So we're going to move on to the census. Dylan, can you take us through a census reminder?
Yes, Dylan Brown, ECN. So currently the census is live online. It's been live since March 12th, and it will be live all the way till about August. So it will be live for the duration of the entire census process, for the most part, well, the summer. And then you should start getting stuff in the mail if you don't respond online by mid-April. So you'll have an opportunity. You can take the census over the phone. You can do it online. You can also do it by mail. And they give you like a letter, and you can respond. There's an envelope in which you can send back the questionnaire via mail. So those are the ways that you can actually take the census. They're encouraging that we take the census online because it's the easiest process. But you could also do it by phone, and you can get that information on 2020census.gov. Currently, Detroit ranks 21st out of the top 25 largest cities to take the census and census response, and that's at 38%. And currently, Michigan is number 3 in the entire nation at 52%, behind Minnesota and Wisconsin, I believe. So we are on track. We're doing great. But obviously, we still need to ensure that we are inviting individuals to take the census if you have not taken it already. With the whole online process, you should have already gotten something in the mail where it provides your census ID. It's a blue letter that you should have gotten in the mail. It's like a 12-digit, it's about a 12-digit with numbers and letters, 12-digit ID. It's your census ID. And you have to type that in once you log into the census, the 2020census.gov. You type in that ID. It's about 10 questions. They're very simple questions, nothing personal. Stuff like who's in your household, the names of the individuals in your household, renting or owning, and that's about it. There's no financial information out there. Moving back to the conversation about scams, if you see something online or anything asking for financial information to take the census, that stuff is false. That stuff is not needed to be able to do the questionnaire. Again, it's about 10 questions. It takes about 10 minutes or less to be able to complete the entire questionnaire. Only one person per household needs to respond on behalf of the entire household. Wherever you are living or sleeping the most is where you should be counted as of April 1st, 2020. So wherever you're sleeping at the most, wherever you're living at the most, wherever you are the most, that's where you should be counted at. And again, the census is extremely important, as we all know. And some of the benefits include obviously the federal funds, and they get allocated for healthcare, police, medical equipment, just things that could be beneficial, definitely beneficial to our entire community. And ECN will provide to the community a list of how the dollars were allocated amongst the federal industry, and we can definitely share that information. That's also on 2020census.gov, but we'll make sure that we're sharing all the information that we get.
Right. And it's also political representation, right?
Yes,
And,
how many houses of within the Congress, correct.
yep, so people are looking at, and it's political representation within the state, and then it's state representation within the nation. So the smaller Detroit is, less influence we have over state processes and government, the fewer people get to represent us at the state level. And I think a lot of people are concerned that the information you share is going to be shared to others. And I want to reassure people that there are protections in place. I did go back and look at prior census questionnaires to make sure that the questions are the same, and they are pretty much the same. There are different racial categories, but the rest of the questions are the same. People did a really good job keeping things like citizenship off of the census. But what our federal government would like to do is to scare us into not filling out the census. Or I shouldn't say not everybody in federal government, but to the extent there are people who are not wanting to invest in places like Detroit and not wanting to have people who are from ethnic communities which are currently under scrutiny. If they don't want them to have political representation, the way they get them to do it is don't fill out a census. And that means that you don't have as much political representation. Look at what the president is doing. He is trying to say that people in certain communities like ours are falsifying votes, that there are not that many people here, and justifying a whole lot of things with it. So I really want us to understand that when this nation was formed, we counted as 3/5. And if only 3 out of 5 of us fill out this census, we have not made any progress. The way to fight back against racism and discrimination, and also against sort of the xenophobia that is anti every immigrant group in America that is not white, is not to avoid the census, is to fill it out and make them count as all as one. So Dylan is working hard trying to get those messages out there, and we have a few activities coming up in the near future to make sure that we encourage people. What group participates the least in the census, Dylan?
That would be Black people, particularly Black men.
Black men. They don't want us counted, and we can't play into that. So I'm excited about possibilities. I really do want to thank you for joining us today and for sharing the information that you have. And with that,
We have one more census question, Donna.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
Yes,
see that.
that's okay.
Okay.
We actually have a caller from Saginaw, Michigan, Dia Patterson Harris, and her census question is, how do you count your college students that are in and out of state for the census?
I can answer that. Wherever that student is located, they will count where they are located. So if their dorm is at Michigan State University, whatever address that is, they will count as such at Michigan State University, the address, the dorm number, etc. So wherever they are, they spend a large portion at school, so that is where they will be represented.
But because so many people came home as of April 1st, they can be counted at your home address, correct?
Correct.
Because they're not living in Michigan State right now.
That's correct.
And so count them at your home, unless they can't come home. And then they have to complete a census wherever they are, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Were there any other questions? Okay, well, we're almost finishing at exactly 8 o'clock, and I'm proud of us for holding to that schedule because there's been a whole lot of information. I want to first of all thank the ECN team which put this together. Teamwork makes the dream work. And even while we are in lockdown mode, the ECN team is working every day, hard at work, trying to make sure that we continue to serve our community however we can. I'm very proud of the team that we are. And I want to thank those people who joined us, our speakers, Dr. McIntyre, Monica Lewis-Patrick, Alex Allen, and all of the staff speakers who came and informed the public. That was a great presentation that we're going to post on our website and also on our Facebook page so that people can continue having access to that information that is well researched and well laid out. So I'm excited about the work that we're doing. We're going to continue working hard to represent and support our community. Don't forget to call a hotline. And if you can't reach a hotline, just email us or reach us however you can, because we're here to serve even in this in these troubling times. Don't forget, stay home, stay safe, love one another, because this is no time for people to not support one another. I think we have one more question. So before we leave, let's ask that question. Okay. One more question. Yes, here it is. Okay.
Yes, Brenda Butler here. On behalf of the Eastside Community Network, I would like to say to our neighbors that the Eastside Community Network is a nonprofit organization in our community that's located at 4401 East Corner. When this pandemic is over, we ask that all the persons that are here on the call with us tonight, please come and be involved in your community. We have plenty of resources at all times. We do have fun, and we need to connect with the neighbors in this community. And Donna, if you would please let the neighbors that are on this call tonight know what areas we serve in the Eastside Community Network and the Lower East Side Action Plan. And thank you very much. And I thank you guys so much for putting this call together at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And with that, if there are no other questions or comments, I think we're going to sign off and thank our team and thank the community, and we'll be back in touch in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Good night, everyone. Great
Good
job.
night, everyone.
Good night. Be safe.
Be safe.
Good night. Be well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Peace.